tonight in executive session. We are now ready to continue with the public portion of our meeting. We have a rather novel situation tonight. The first time it has happened in my 18 years on the board. As you see, there are 5 of us here. We had several board members who had unexpected situations, either business or personal, come up, not be here. Our colleague, Mr. Campbell, has to leave very shortly.
Hey,
So-
Tim's on his way, so let's just do it.
Do it another one?
Yes. He
Okay.
said he'd be here in 5 minutes.
Well,
Sorry.
okay. Okay, so we will not do that. I thought we would have to start with public comment and then progress quickly to votes on all of our items and then have testing report and whatnot. But since our colleague Tim Campbell is on his way, he will give us a quorum when our colleague Dave Campbell leaves. We will proceed with the meeting as you see it on your agenda. So, starting with the President's report, I wanted to, since the legislature is busy out campaigning and not in Trenton creating unfunded mandates and other things, I thought that I would take this time to recognize both the people who are at this table and the people who, for various reasons, are not at this table. I think sometimes some people think Board of Ed members get paid. They don't get paid. We get paid in personal satisfaction and absolutely nothing else. But I wanted to praise all of the board members because each one brings a different set of strengths to this table. Professional strengths, personal strengths. Everybody on this board is a parent, but everybody on this board is also able to see the bigger picture of the district. And I think, down in school boards, they always have a session called School Boards Gone Wild, which is video of the worst school board meetings probably in the history of school boards. And it's very instructive to see what happens in other places that doesn't happen here. So I wanted to express my appreciation to board members who spend so much time and time away from their families and their professions to do this job. And I also wanted to mention that on Friday, the State Department of Education, in conjunction with the Council of Chief State School Officers, had a day-long session. If you go online to the hashtag #TeachLikeMeNewJersey, all one word, @TeachLikeMeNewJersey, they had a day-long session at Stockton University on building staff diversity. The Council of Chief State School Officers has developed a nationwide initiative to diversify the teacher workforce, and New Jersey has just joined that initiative, and they are the 10th. We are the 10th state to do so. And the day I was following along with it on Twitter, the day it started with welcoming remarks by Dr. Repillet, started with a presentation by department staff on the current staffing situation in New Jersey, both active teaching force and teachers in the pipeline. The session was really geared more towards the college educators who were there and how to develop a more diverse pipeline of teacher candidates, how to work this problem for the next 10 years. So it seemed to be very well attended. They brought up a lot of the issues we talked about here. It's encouraging to think that this is a priority on the state level, not just a board goal here in Glen Ridge. And with that, let's go to the superintendent's report.
I'm going to present the district testing report, but just like Betsy almost had something that's a little unique, so do we. Typically at this time of year, we have all the state results when I receive them, but they are embargoed until Wednesday, so I can't show them to you. So I'm actually going to, this is the typical assessments that I would go over. Today I'm going to go over the FARC exam, the advanced placement exams, and talk about the New Jersey Science Assessment. And as far as the tests are typically at the high school, that are at the high school level. We'll present those at another time, maybe next month if we receive them, the SATs in November. So with our park exam, we continue to perform very well, especially when you compare us at the state level. When I started looking at these numbers, some of the things I try to look at is at the 4 and 5 levels, which are the last two on your right, those are your passing levels. Meeting expectations and exceeding expectations. We're looking to get numbers around the 80 percentile. Those are considered very high at the state level. You look at other comparable districts, those are where those numbers are at. And obviously you want to have a low percent at levels 1 and 2. And I'm very pleased when I've started seeing a lot more zeros at the level 1 compared to previous years. But we're also seeing a little bit of increase at the levels 4 and 5. Our students are doing well in these exams throughout all the grade levels.
So Dirk, when
Yes.
you say 80%, that means a combination of 4
So,
and 5.
yeah, so if you look at the third grade, if you take the 62.9 and 18.9, add them together, you're looking at a little over 80% there in the third grade level. Yes?
And the 11th grade is low because those students are.
11.
Right.
So two things you should know about. One, the 11th grade is low because those tests aren't that meaningful. It's not a graduation requirement anymore. They've already met their graduation requirement. Students don't feel a need to take it. Park happens just around the same time that a lot of 11th graders are taking AP exams. So they're prioritizing what exam they want to take. With SATs are also subject areas are in the month of May. So the 11th graders are getting hit hard at the end of April, early May. So out of our roughly 140 11th graders last year, only 16 of them took the park exam. And most likely, some of those 16 are those who probably hadn't met graduation requirements yet. The 10th grade is highlighted. English 10 is a graduation requirement. For last year's 10th grade class, they could either pass the English 10 part, or there's alternative assessments such as PSATs, SATs, and ACTs that they could use as their graduation assessment requirement. Just a quick little graphic of our LA who scored a 4 or 5 passing scores compared to the state. Typically, we're anywhere from 20 to 30% points higher than the state level. We have one grade, 7th grade, that's a little closer than the others. And I'll show you another slide. The grades jump all over depending what year. So there's no rhythm or rhyme of, oh, that class always does poorly or this class always does well. So that's something we'll look at. And this just reiterates how well we're doing when we start looking at mean scores at the grade level with our English scores. District levels compared to the New Jersey score level, compared to the park score. Last year there was still 6 states that use park. That's slowly dissipating. There was 2 big tests at one point, the park and smarter balance. States have started to move away from it. One of the things I'm going to mention a little bit, New Jersey is moving away from park. I'm sure what we're going to see is very similar to park, but it's going to use a different name. So again, I'm looking at these scores, and typically our average, I'm looking for that to be 20 to 30 points higher than the state average. And that's happening across the board for the most part.
Sir,
Yes?
what's the highest score you possibly have?
850. And there's a little bar graph of where we comparing scores each grade level for the last 4 years. You're going to see some dips some year. And part of that is just developing the test, part of that is getting students used to new standards, part of that is getting students used to the new testing method. But for the most part, again, I'm looking for that 80% passing, and we're hitting that a lot. When you start looking at 8th, 9th, 10th, especially the early years, we've had a lot of students opting out of the test, so it really wasn't reflective of where we're at. The English 10 requirement, graduation requirement test wasn't in place those first couple years. So if students met graduation requirements, and they could have done that 9th grade year, or they could have done that with their PSATs before their 10th grade year, our students just simply didn't take it. And you can see those two years in 10th grade, 2016-17, those numbers were low and higher than state average, but still low. And that, again, was our students meeting the graduation requirement, so they didn't feel a need. So a lot of our students didn't take the exam then. And then looking at our math exam numbers. Again, if you look at your left column, we have a lot of zeros in that first column, the level 1, which is great to see. And if you look at our last two columns, our goal is trying to hit around the 80 mark. Overall, the math test scores are a little bit lower than the English scores, and that's across at the state level. You're going to see that left and right. Algebra 1 is your graduation requirement. So our students last year who took Algebra 1 needed to pass that exam. If they didn't pass it, they're going to be remediated this year. They're taking it in the fall. Some students, if they're classified, might have something written in their RIP that they're not required to pass it, but they'll use other assessments to prove proficiency. But again, high numbers across the board. Looking at our numbers at the state level, you can start seeing a big gap in the math. There's third, fourth, the gap isn't as much, but as we progress on to the higher level math, that gap seems to get bigger. So our students are continuing to show growth and in-depth understanding, while the state seems to be struggling a little bit more. And just looking at our needs across the board, as I mentioned, I'm looking for 20 to 30 points higher, and you're constantly seeing that straight down the columns. Our 8th grade numbers are a little bit off, so those who aren't familiar, if you don't have kids of that age. Our 8th graders, not all our 8th graders are taking the 8th grade part. About half of our class, 8th grade class, is enrolled in Algebra 1. So those students take the Algebra 1 test. Yes?
So, is there a basis for your 20 to 30 points higher than the state? Like, why do you think that number?
Not really. It's just knowing where the state's performing. It's been the norm for us, so it's been a little bit of comparison over the years. And if we're maintaining that gap, that's what I want to continue to see.
So that's a historical gap?
Yes.
Some years is-
Seeing where we are with the math percentages. And again, as I mentioned, the 8th grade, we're not seeing our top 8th grade students take that test, so that makes sense that those numbers are not as high as in the other courses. And geometry and algebra 2, we're seeing students opt out of those classes because they're not graduation requirements. It's usually students who have not passed the graduation requirement, or because mom and dad has forced them to sit there. We're not getting the same performance. And you can see grades 5, 6, and 7 have really excelled the last couple years. So with our park, we continue to perform well across the board. Park, New Jersey has recently proposed, hasn't been adapted yet. After the change in law has been proposed, there's a 60-day period where they go around and speak to groups and get info, and then they decide in December if they're going to accept the proposal. I don't see anything based happening that why they wouldn't, but the proposal is changing park into the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. So you're going to see that you won't see park anymore mentioned as we move forward into testing come springtime. With us, our park data is always shared with the staff. We look at scattergrams, what areas we're doing well, what areas we're not doing so well. With our numbers, it's tough identifying weaknesses because our numbers are extremely high. Some recommended changes to the park, or what will now be the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments. There will be less testing time. At the elementary level, you're going to see a unit removed from the math and the language arts. At the high school, you're going to see less time in each section, so the students are going to be tested for a less period. In grade 11, there won't be a grade 11 exam. The graduation requirements will remain Algebra 1 and English 10, so they didn't see a reason to keep the grade 11. At the high school level, even if you took Algebra 1 in 8th grade, the proposed changes says that students have to take 2 years of testing at the math in math. So assume if they're taking Algebra 1, we take Geometry and Algebra 2, 9th and 10th grade. We'll see how many students participate in that. We encourage our students to take part of that. That's good data information to see where we're at, see if there's weaknesses in certain areas that we have to address. Starting with this year's sophomore class, they had to pass Algebra 1 and Language Arts grade 10. That was the only graduation assessment in place. If they didn't pass that, they'd have to go to a portfolio assessment, which was a long process. Prior to that, as I mentioned earlier, they could use the PSATs, ACTs, and SATs. That wasn't in place for the 10th graders. That has changed with the new proposed law. So the current 10th graders, until the year 2025, will be able to use those alternative assessments as graduation requirements. So lots happening at the state level, and that's part of the new governor coming in. So we have a new commissioner who proposed that. The legislation got together and they made some compromise to come to this agreement. Yes?
If I'm remembering correctly, the scattergrams are the improvement, what, as instructors, you find an improvement over the New Jersey ask, right? That was the good thing about part.
The scattergrams, you can start seeing which areas weren't as strong as the performance.
And
overall.
that's an improvement, right, compared to New Jersey ask?
Yes, that's information we did not get from New Jersey.
And is that for like individual students, or is it kind of lumped? I forget.
It's presented to us, so if you look at the English grade 5, it's every student, but they don't identify which student it is, so we can look at performance.
With regard to the miniature controversy now about the writing scores part, the transition from human scoring to AI scoring, have we noticed a difference in our writing?
Our writing hasn't changed significantly at all. You see growth and dips every year. There's nothing significant. It says it's gone down overall. Well, I don't know. I don't know how the AI program's working. Moving on to the science assessments. This was a change last year. Last year they moved to grades 5, 8, and 11. Previously, the science assessment was done grade 4, grade 8, and if you were in biology cohorts, you had a biology end of the year assessment. So last year they switched over what grade levels. Last year was just a field test. Those students in 5, 8, and 11 took the test. The state is not sharing those results. They're using those results to build a better test. This year, students in grades 5, 8, and 11 will take the test again. It will be a baseline test. It will be shared with us, but they don't count towards your New Jersey QSAC, our state reporting system. They're not going to count the science assessment for that. In 2020, then, we'll get a full implementation. The science scores will be a part of how they report out on what our school district is doing. So, a lot of changes on the state assessment level. All right, this is real. I'm skipping over these numbers until they come in. Our advanced placement numbers. 2018, we saw a big jump in the number of students taking advanced placement tests and a number of advanced placement tests administered. We saw a little bit jump in the percentages of students who scored a 3 or higher. One of the things that we set out to do a few years ago is really try to expose more of our students to advanced placement courses, so they get used to that rigor that they can expect when they get to the next level in college. So along with that came we started introducing courses that didn't have a prerequisite to take an advanced placement. Last year we had AP Psychology added, and we had Human Geography added as our AP courses. Again, no prerequisite there, so we had more students who might not have been on that AP track take those AP courses, and that's why you see the increase of our numbers. The number of subjects, because we're offering more AP subjects and we're having more students take some virtual online AP courses, you're seeing our number of subject areas increase. Again, you look at our goal of trying to get more students exposed to AP exams. This has been our trend for the last 6 years, with really a big jump the last few years. And we continue to get recognized for how well we're doing. This past year, we had 71 students recognized for their performance on AP exams. Last December, we were named to the AP District Honor Roll. I'm hoping that we'll be on this year's AP Honor Roll based on our numbers. I think we're in pretty good shape to get on, be named. And we had 4 students named as commended students in the National Merit Scholarship Program. I should go back to this. We are offering, maybe it's in the next slide, some other recognition that the district is doing well. Gold medal winner, U.S. News and World Report. We continue to make this list as one of the best high schools. New Jersey Monthly came out this year, ranked 23rd, the best public high school. And if you look at our graduation rate, we're about 99% of our students graduate. 97% of those students are going on to 4-year colleges and university. And those are some of the top picks from selections from last year's graduating class. So I don't like to talk too much about rankings because every ranking system is a little bit different. There's a lot out there, so I don't know how accurate some of these are anymore. With New Jersey Monthly, every time they come out with a ranking system, they seem to change their criteria. So it's hard to compare where you were previously if they're using different criteria. But what's nice is we're constantly getting recognized, and that's a good example of how well this school system is performing. Moving forward, again, looking for ways to offer unique experience for our students. We brought in AP Capstone, and that's a 2-year program. First year, the students would take a seminar class, and the following year, they do really an in-depth research class, where not only are they doing a research paper, but they have to present that to a panel of experts. This year was the first year we're running the AP seminar. We were hoping for about 12 to 15 students. We had enough that we had to run 2 classes of it. So that's a sign that our students are eager for those unique learning experiences.
What grades?
We opened it up to 10th and 11th. Since it's a 2-year program, the seniors wouldn't make sense. And we want to take it a little easier on those freshmen and transition them in before we start throwing AP classes at them. Cross-curricular planning is always going on. It's one of our topics when we do curriculum committee reviews. This year we are reviewing our science curriculum and along with our PE and health curriculum. So those are things that we're looking at when we're starting to design curriculums. We added AP Chinese for this year, and as I mentioned, the AP seminar class we added. For next year, we'll be adding AP research, and it's early in the school year, maybe, I'm sure there'll be additional classes for next year. And it's, and we have constant professional development going on. 2 big programs we had over the summer. We started an Orton Gilliam training, and that's done for teachers at the elementary level. It's a reading instructional program. We had 25 or 26, Jack, teachers?
24.
24 teachers come in for a week over the summer, trained all day for that week, each day, 5 days. And there's a follow-up program in December for them. And we brought in literacy consultants, and they're working with our teachers pre-K through grade 8 this year. They're coming in multiple times. They're going to work with them individually within the classroom, but also as a group. It might be grade level group, it might be entire building level group, to really make sure that we're being consistent in what we're offering, that we're running our workshops properly, that our guided reading, our guided writing, looking at our literature books in the classroom, make sure that we have the proper levels for our students. So it's getting everyone on the same page, but also infusing in some of the best techniques out there in teaching literacy. So I'm going to open it up to the BOE members first.
Then public. Board, any other questions?
Yes, Heather. Younger student, well, we're starting to open up AP classes at a younger level. The AP seminars opened up to 10th graders. AP Computer Science has been open the last several years for 10th graders. We're talking about bringing AP World down at a younger age. So that's one of the movements and trends in.
Can you pick out what is it because you're offering it to younger classes, and what is like the class size increase, or what are the numbers coming from the fact that more students at like the junior or senior level are taking these classes because they're interested in them, or are you getting more numbers because now sophomores can take them, or is it just more numbers because the class sizes are bigger?
We're having more numbers because we're off with the juniors and seniors because we're giving them courses, new courses that they didn't have an opportunity to take. Your typical AP track student would probably take junior year, senior year, probably 3 to 4. Some are taking, 4 to 6 classes, AP classes, one of those years. So their schedules with the mandated courses they have to take really didn't open up opportunities to take more APs. It's those other students who weren't in that AP necessary in the AP track that we're seeing taking the new courses.
Okay, so more of the older grades because of the lack of US.
Yes.
Other board questions? Thank you for the presentation, great. I have a question about PARC. I'm just wondering about opt-out rates statewide. And I'm wondering if the state provides us with any information about the opt-out percentages. And then I'm curious to know how our district compares to, you pointed out junior year as being off the norm, but I'm just really wondering how we fall off. There certainly was a full pushed opt-out 2 years ago that I think people kind of came back a little bit last year, and I'm just wondering how it all shakes out.
So if you look at our elementary numbers down in Ridgewood, our opt-out, we're probably in the high 90s.
Participation.
Participation. It was. So it's a rare case when we get someone at that age group opting out. We're seeing more of the opt-out happening in grades 9, 10, and 11. And at some, depending on what year and what class, it was below state level, the number of opt-out. a reason for that is our kids were meeting graduation requirements prior to those grades, so they weren't taking the park exam. Where in other districts that might not have been happening as much. What has happened now with the, prior to the new proposal, is because you had to pass Algebra 1 and LA 10, you couldn't use any alternative assessment unless you sat for those tests. It forced those kids to take the test. So our opt-out numbers in 9 and 10 has been much better the last couple of years because of that.
And I think statewide, opt-out varies widely from district to district. Some suburban districts like Livingston, Ridgewood have a very high opt-out rate. Jersey City, much less. So the state does have those numbers overall. You have to meet your 95% participation rate, right? And most grade levels we do.
Right. And if you don't make that, then there's an improvement plan that has to be submitted to the county.
Other board questions or comments?
So I'm just curious, obviously there's no way of knowing, but any sense of what's on the horizon as we start to phase out park? I mean, is there another test across the country that's looking more appealing or?
It will be a state exam. And if you look across the country, at one point there was probably 45 states committed either to the park or smarter balance, and now you're looking under 20 states, and probably after last year even less. States have either constructed their own, or they have moved to using SAT, ACTs as their graduation test.
And the state has hired a company called New Meridian that is based in Texas that is a fairly new company, but their executives came from Pearson, the College Board, all the big testing entities. The state has retained New Meridian to help them design the next generation test. And they just gave a presentation to the State Board of Ed 2 months ago. So they're getting going with that work. But it's nowhere near completion, beta testing or anything else yet.
And I imagine the format would be somewhat similar to that.
Other questions or comments from the board?
Following up on that.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of investment in computers and the networking to do these testing. So this next gen is going to not waste all that money.
They'll be online tests.
I would have trouble believing the state would move away from all that.
I don't think they will.
Just because we get results back so much quicker, they're able to grade them quicker. Most of the testing that we're seeing, standardized testing, is happening online. SATs you have that option now.
Questions or comments additional from the board? Ally,
Real quick, just regarding AP Capstone, I was just wondering if there's any early feedback or if you've heard anything conversationally from students, if it seems to be moving in the right direction, if people are enthusiastic about it, or really feels like a new program, or we're still feeling things out.
I've spoke to the teacher several. I'm actually going to present to the class on Thursday. Just speaking to the teacher, he seems very excited. He's a dynamic teacher, Mr. Hansen. So I think that helps creating a sense of excitement, and I'll get a better feel Thursday when we class.
other questions or comments? Okay, it's time for public comment on agenda items, particularly the testing report. I think you all know the format. Mrs. Sala.
You said on the park that you're interested in seeing the meets or exceeds 20 to 30 points higher than the state. But sort of in the interest of continuous improvement, and somebody asked, and said, well, that's just kind of a guideline or a number you picked. Perhaps, would it be interesting to see school districts that continuously perform high or really higher than us and compare what is their delta above the state to ours and try and work? I mean, we can always do better, not saying these are bad,
Mhm.
but wouldn't it be good to compare ourselves to those who are better than us in an effort to strive a little higher each year?
It is, you know, typically around December, January, we're start seeing some reports on how other districts have done in comparison. Historically, we've been mentioned, depending on which grade, different grade levels, as being one of the higher performing districts in the state. But we'll go look to find our typical districts, Millburn, Livingston, Ridgewood, Chatham's, to see how they're doing and how we do comparison-wise. If we're seeing a big gap, it's not unusual for us to reach out to those districts to see what they're doing differently.
I mean, it seemed to me should be sort of an integral part of, not just what are the numbers, but how can we work
I
to
think that
improve?
this is something that we do in the outreach to other districts, is that the superintendents speak to each other, curriculum
Building
directors.
principals.
So it's an ongoing effort.
Right, my point is not just finding out what they're doing, but putting a plan in place to make ourselves a little bit better each time.
I believe that's ongoing. Other questions or comments? Yes, Anthony?
Well, it's related to Greta's question. So Dirk, I wanted to know if you were gonna come back with those numbers from our cohorts to compare us to them, just when you get them, just so we can see
Yeah.
what that difference is.
I'll do that.
If at all.
I will say, and I typically will go through and wait for them to present theirs, or wait for a state to release all the districts, and I haven't seen that yet. When we had New Jersey ask, it was built into our summary reports of the district factor grouping, so it was a little bit easier to get those numbers. Since we've moved this part, the state no longer provides comparable numbers. So once they're published at the state level, I go into the districts and I'll sit there and I'll compare them. I'll be more than happy to bring them back at a board meeting.
Other questions or comments? Yes?
I had a question about I need to ask you if you put the slide back up.
That's all right.
The percentages per like level for math, like level 1, level 2, by grade. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Third grade, is there like a typo there?
Yeah, that's good. That's a typo.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
So it was a small number that had
I'll
level.
tell you, I have right here. Third grade percentage is 4.5.
Oh, okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
That would scare me too.
I have a third grader, so.
Other questions or comments? Okay, there will be more opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. We'll continue now with our agenda. It is the first meeting of the month, so we have committee and liaison reports for those of us who are here. So we will start with Heather.
Yes, so Linden Avenue Women's School met on September 12th. They talked about, it was spring cleaning last year. They talked about the projects they spent their money on. There was a new projector system put into the multi-purpose room, and they also did a teacher lounge renovation. And then they got some extra money for when Glen Ridge benefits kind of wound down, and they approved using that money to redo the floor in the office. They were looking for volunteers both for the library and for lunches. They talked about the assemblies they're going to have this year. They're going to have Bubble-mania and Liberty Science Center is coming, Power Flow Yoga and Dancing with Honeybees. The community service talked about the projects they have coming up. For the Mum and Prom, they were also donating the Halloween costumes. November, they were going to do a food or cash drive for Honey's Kitchen. December, they're thinking about a toy drive. Upcoming stuff, they had a book fair in September. Back to school night was also at the end of September. They've already had the Mum and Prom. Yes. And coming up this week, they have their Fall Maker Day, their pumpkin walk, of course, on the end of October, the 25th, and the Halloween parade on Halloween itself.
We hope for good weather, right? Especially with
Yes.
pumpkin weather.
And their next meeting is November 14th.
Okay, thank you. Tracy?
Yes, I want to say thank you to Betsy and Derek for attending the Grace meeting on October 10th. They have a meet and greet, and I understand there was a wonderful turnout among staff and administrators, and the Grace representatives wanted to say thank you to everyone who came that night. They very appreciate
It's a
it.
great gathering.
Yeah, so they were very excited about that, and I believe we have our date set for March, we'll be starting the March meeting. Gaslamp Players, as usual, has a lot going on. Tickets are now on sale for Willy Wonka Jr. grades 3 through 7th, and those performances are November 17th and 19th. Tickets will be on sale November 1st for Christmas Carol, which involves actors of all ages, and those performances will be December 7th and 9th. And they have a teen performance in February of Les Miserables. Also, they'll be hosting free community performances of 101 Dalmatians, kids workshop on December 2nd, and a junior glee performance on December 14th. Forest Avenue School met on October 3rd. As usual, like Linden Avenue, there's so much going on. They've had their character education week called Week of Respect. In the process of planning for their walking school bus and Red Ribbon Week, which will focus on making good choices. They're very, very happy that the window replacements are occurring, yay.
And pictures are up.
Yes, there are pictures on the website, right? They're planning for the Halloween parade and celebration and their Festival of Jack-o'-lanterns, which I believe is October 25th. They had a very successful book fair, and at the last meeting, we were finishing up their school photos and starting their wrapping paper sale. Plans are also underway for Teacher Appreciation Week in November, and Mrs. Glazier reported for the teachers and specifically mentioned how much they all enjoyed the tour of Central School. So thank you very much for that. Mrs. Walter also reported on the One Book, One School program and asked for funding. That's a really terrific program where the whole school reads the same book and their daily activities surrounding the readings.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you. I went to the Ridgewood Avenue Home and School meeting where Dr. Donovan spoke about his newsletters, which are going to be topical, including his most recent one on homework. He also stressed to parents that the importance of communication with school faculty and administration, that before you go out on social media about something, that you communicate with school personnel, because sometimes it shortens the process of information gathering. As with the elementary schools, this month and next month, there's a great deal of stress on character education. Ridgewood will experience Red Ribbon Week as well. National Education Week is coming up. There was also discussion, a little bit of discussion of school photos, which are finished now for the year. They thank Lisa Colberg, who has done school photos for a long time, who's finally aging out of Ridgewood Avenue School, will no longer do that. There was also some brief discussion of the showing of the movie Screenagers, which some of you are familiar with, which is going to be both for, I'm sorry? Tomorrow night, yes. And so that's it for Ridgewood Avenue. And then I also accompanied Dirk to the Open Grace Meet and Greet, which was great. We had a short presentation by the wraparound mental health, ESS, that we have had at the high school for a number of years, providing support service to a group of students, mental health services to a group of students. We made the decision last year to expand that into the Ridgewood Avenue School. So the ESS personnel came and talked about what ESS does. And then it was just a general sort of, there were some introductory remarks that were an introduction sort of to Grace and the materials they had on hand for parents. And then it was just a nice chance to meet and greet, talk to individual parents, and really a very good turnout, number of faculty members there, and Dr. Mitchell. And that's me.
updated, which it has been updated recently with some gorgeous bathroom pictures, if you're interested. And we talked about planning upcoming coffee conversations.
Which we have one coming up, what?
We have one coming up on Thursday, the 18th, here at the high school during conferences. Also, the Glenridge High School Home and School meeting was last Thursday, the 11th. A couple of items were mentioned, I'll share with you. On October 1st, the high school welcomed Mr. Christopher J. Durkin, the Essex County Clerk, who met with the senior class to discuss civic engagement and the role of his office in the electoral process. October 1st through the 5th was the week of respect, and we had the opportunity to talk about a couple of the events that happened during that week. Wednesday, October 3rd, the guidance department hosted open lunch sessions to provide assistance with the college application process. On October 10th, the PSATs were administered to the sophomores and juniors. This week is School Violence Awareness Week in New Jersey Public Schools, and the administration is working closely with the Glenridge Police Department to practice emergency response procedures. October 16th, as you mentioned, Betsy, the Home and School Association is sponsoring a presentation of screenagers at Ridley Avenue School. The 18th, the guidance department is hosting a college fair, and students will have an opportunity to meet with representatives from over 60 institutions of higher learning that day. Both the 18th and the 25th are middle school, high school conferences here at Glenridge High School. The memo went out last week giving people links to sign up for conference times with their teachers. October 23rd, Ms. Polinsky is hosting Hidden in Plain Sight, a program to help promote substance abuse awareness. Dr. Harris also mentioned during that meeting, and an announcement went out today by email, the reinstatement, I don't know if it's ever taken away, but the reinstatement of middle school recess, which everyone was absolutely thrilled about for the 7th and 8th grade. And also share the results of the 7th and 8th grade t-shirt contest. Dr. Harris is doing an amazing job helping to rebrand the middle school. It's always great to hear what you have to share. And that's it for me. Jim?
Yes, so you may have noticed that the contractor performing the preliminary demolition scope at Central School has begun mobilization, and there's some dumpsters out there. The finance committee, through our council, has been in discussions with the remaining tenant in the building, and they have assured us that their plans are to vacate within the next 2 weeks. So we expect that to be completed, and that as of the 1st of November, that we'll have complete control over that building finish our design and engineering scope for the renovation.
Good step forward, thank you. Okay, moving along on our agenda, we have in our packages minutes from August 29th, the special meeting, September 11th, and September 24th. Does anyone have any editorial corrections or other corrections for those minutes? All right, Tim, would you move the minutes?
Yes, I move M1.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
You can take it,
Okay. Any discussion? No other discussion of the minutes. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Hilbert?
Mr. Kevin?
Aye for all three.
Ms. Lang?
I abstain from the August 29th special meeting, and I to the meetings of the 11th, which I was with.
Ms. Auburn? St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
So I abstained for the 11th and I to the other two.
Ms. Ginsburg? Aye. Okay. Administration, we have several administrative items, including the first reading for new and revised policies,
B6.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ally. Discussion of these. Dirk, do you want to say a few words about the policies?
The policy, the first one, the policy and regulation, has to do with what the state is called pass the trash law, where it's, when we hire new employees now, we must do a 20-year background check on them. We contact all their former employees, making sure that there was no issues with children and abuse. So this is a more thorough check that the schools are responsible for now. And the other policy is occasionally, and I do mean occasionally, it's a rare situation where we might have some student who physically acts out. And when that's the case, we do have certain staff members who are trained in restraining techniques, and that's what the second policy is about. If you have certified staff members who are trained on these techniques, then you can use those restraining techniques.
All right, any other questions or comments on the administrative items from the board? All right, Barbara, when you're ready, we can call roll.
Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert?
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
Yes, I move P1 through P11, including the additional item for P1 on the agenda.
May I have a second? Second. Second from Ally. In keeping with our rules, any personnel items are discussed in the executive session. Barbara, when you're ready.
Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert?
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Curriculum, Heather, would you move the curriculum items?
Sure, I move C1.
C1. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tracy. Any questions or comments on any of these field trips? No? All right, Barbara, when you're ready.
Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert?
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, before we move to business items, I want to draw your attention to the donations listed under B4 on your agenda. We are accepting with thanks from the Ridgewood Avenue Home and School Association the donation of Chromebooks and Chromebook cart and the Chromios Management Service valued at almost $9,000. So I know Dr. Donovan will convey our thanks to the Ridgewood Avenue Home and School Association. We also accept with thanks the generous donation of $28,000 for the literacy consultants coming from the Glenridge Education Foundation. Allie Ilworth is not here, she is our liaison to the Ed Foundation, but I know that Dirk will convey our thanks to them. Also, we accept with thanks the generous donation from the Glenridge Education Foundation of $2,800 for Rick Gillingham training. Again, we thank the foundation for yet another generous donation. And with that, Tim, would you move the business items?
Yes, I move B1 through B8.
Okay, may I have a second? Second from Ally. Any questions or comments from the board on business items?
I just have a comment on B6. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we went out for our building systems maintenance contract. It was a scope that our business administrator had inherited. And I just want to compliment you. It was her idea to split out the package between the scope that was proprietary within there and carve that out and open it up to get more competition. And we achieved the exact result we hoped for, which was taking the one piece and going to another bidder who came in with a more competitive. So thank you, and please continue those great ideas.
Okay, any further comment? Okay. Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Keppel?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Ms. St. Aubern?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we come to the second public comment period for comments or questions on agenda or other items. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mrs.
Kind of a minor one, I always wonder this. When you're voting on the personnel, like appointments, and it says effective date, and it's like, 6 weeks ago or whatever. When it's that long ago, again, maybe sometimes it's short notice things, but why wasn't it voted at, like, maybe at the next meeting, rather than 6 weeks after the appointment?
Barbara, you want to comment?
We're just looking at the staff members here. It might have been like Jennifer McCray. She was already in that position, and she's only was going to be here part of the year, but the teacher who's on leave just notified us that she's going out for the remainder of the year. So then she's reapproved for the remainder of the year.
But that was, I mean, that started on September 1, right?
She had already been approved.
Right.
Yes. So,
But then she, I'm guessing, approved until the end of August, and then all of a sudden, the teacher's gonna stay out. I understand they're short notice things. So you knew that November 1 because Jennifer McCray is still there, but just wonder why you didn't vote on it.
Jennifer McCray was approved before November 1st to be there from November 1st to I think December, a date in December. We got notified this week that the teacher's gonna be out the entire
So
year.
that's like an extension?
So
Is
that's
that
an
what you're saying?
extension.
Okay, is that the case on all these? Because every time I wonder, well, why is it like 6 or 8 weeks later for some of them? Are they all like that? or-
Just looking at this, Jody Schnack is revised. She was approved at one point for that position. I'm not sure why it was revised. It might have been, the hourly rate might have been revised.
And the other two I understand, and there is, one of them is to be,
So it's usually some kind of unique situation.
okay.
A changed circumstance. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if that is the case, may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Ally, second? Second by Heather. Thank you all.